Hello everyone, welcome to Slop Tent. Today I want to talk about Nvidia's 50 series launch and just how much of a joke it is. So let's start at the beginning and see how this went down. On January 6, 2025, Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang unveiled to the world the 50 series. This included their prices, their features, and some of their performance stats. Alright, first let's take a look at the pricing. Now for all the GPUs except for the RTX 5090 being the equivalent of a down payment on a car, they all got price cuts compared to their 40 series predecessors, with the 5080 being $200 less and both 5070s being $50 less. One of the bold statements that they made was that you could get 4090 performance with the 5070 at only $549. However, they're not being entirely truthful here. At raw performance, you will get nowhere near the performance of the 4090 with the 5070. Now, the reason why they're making this claim is because one of the 50 series' newest features is multi-frame gen. To explain this briefly, they used a trained AI to predict what happens in between frames. It'll generate images of what it thinks it happens, and then slide them in between the real frames, and thus giving the appearance of more FPS. This is why Nvidia is making this claim. Now, this wouldn't be an issue if these fake frames were just as seamless as the real ones. There are definitely problems, and the consumer should be aware of this. Well, one, you need to make sure your game can even support multi-frame gen, assuming you're on a game that can support multi-frame gen. The two problems that you should be aware of is artifacting and latency. Latency is just the input delay between your actions in the game, so the more FPS you want, the bigger the input delay is. Now, from game to game and scenario to scenario, the latency could be either really small or really bad. It all depends. However, it is a definite that it does get worse the more frames you do have generated. Then there's the artifacting. Personally, to me, this is the making or breaking of this feature. When these fake frames are generated into the game, they'll be pretty close, but not perfect, and thus these visual artifacts can be seen. Just like with the latency problem, the more fake frames you have, the more artifacting you're gonna see. The amount of artifacting that you will see in your games does depend, again, from scenario to scenario. If you're in a slow-moving, predictable environment with an already high enough base FPS, you really won't see much, and you'll kind of have to go out of your way to look for some of this stuff. But in other scenarios where it's a fast-paced environment and stuff is flying across the screen and it's kind of unpredictable, you will see a lot of artifacting and kind of gargling, looking around. That is why this statement saying that the 5070 will have 4090 performance is loaded with bullshit. The raw stats will never be comparable to the 4090. Next, I want to go over the performance uplift compared to the previous generation. In 4K, on average, the 5090 outperforms the 4090 by just about 30%. This sounds half decent until you start comparing all the other 50 series cards. On average, in 1440p, the 5080 only outperforms the 4080 Super by about 8%. These cards are priced at the exact same MSRP. 8% is just abysmal. This seems like it would have fit snugly right in with the last generation of GPUs, as it doesn't even beat the 4090. Just as a quick reference, the 4080 clears the previous generation's flagship, the 3090, by quite a bit, yet the 5080 is just barely better than the 4080. And it's basically the same gist with the 5070 Ti and the 5070. Quick thing I want to add is the insane amount of power draw some of these cards have. This mainly goes for the 5090 because of the insane 575 watt power draw. This terrifies me because I remember the whole debacle where the 4090s were fucking melting and the 5090 is drawing 125 more watts than the 4090. Now I want to get into my final point, and arguably the worst one. All of the points beforehand would honestly not mean much if people actually had the ability to buy the GPUs. However, unfortunately in this universe, most just can't. Right now there's a GPU shortage, and that is heavily affecting the price and the availability of these cards. And yes, the shortage is Nvidia's fault. They released almost like none on launch day. I went on Amazon and looked up the RTX 5090, and as of the making of this video, there's literally only 3 available, and of course the prices are all hiked up to high hell. You have a better chance of getting struck by lightning than actually being able to buy one of these cards. God, I wish it was just the 5090 only having this problem. What's that? You want to buy a brand new mid-range GPU? Well, don't worry, little Timmy, it only cost you a rent's worth of money, but you better be quick because we only got one left. And don't even feel proud when you buy it because it's the exact same as its predecessor. And you can't even get those. You can't even get them. There's none. Overall, this launch of brand new GPUs by Nvidia has been a complete disaster. And the unfortunate reality of the situation is that they probably don't care. They have complete market domination innovation in an area that they don't even make most of their money from. There is literally no reason for them to actually put in any real innovation or to try to be competitive. I mean, you can't be competitive if there's no one to compete against. And that's about all I gotta say. Goodbye.